really interested in hearing more about your project. I'm sure it's going to be a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm very excited too.
Likewise, Wade.
That's great. Okay, so we have the streaming link here and copying it to the chat in case you want to share it, but
Yeah.
perfect. Great. Okay, so just one more minute to go and we will start with the conversation. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We are very, very excited
Yeah.
to talk with you. Okay, are you ready?
Yes. You can start.
Perfect. So I will start now. Thank you, Vade, for accepting this invitation, and thank you everyone who's watching. We're really excited to talk with ocean advocate Ved Sanyal. Ved, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I'm Ved. I'm 14 years old, and I study in Pune. And to give us a sort of when I started being really passionate about the environment, about a year and a half is when I approached our school principal, and I saw the school around, and I could see that we're not being sustainable. We're throwing so much waste. We're using so much energy. We're using so much food, etc., etc. And that when I wanted to start small and start by fixing a few problems in the school. And now that's evolved to a whole project to reduce our school's carbon footprint by 60%. So that's something our school is doing. And by August, we're going to have our school's carbon footprint reduced by 60%. And then now I've come to the Blue Circle and the Pop Festival, and I was able to also get another one of my solutions, and I hope to be able to actually implement it now that I've gotten to meet so many people who are in the field and who have the expertise that I require. So I hope to implement my plastic solution as well.
Perfect. We've heard about this solution and we're really, really excited about it. So getting into that subject, you said you came into contact with the Blue Circle, and plastic pollution is considered one of the biggest challenges of our generation. Can you share with us why this is a problem and why it happens? And what is your perspective on it?
So I think the plastic pollution problem is larger than just single-use plastic or not proper disposal of plastic. I think it's improper disposal of waste in general. And so our system is not a circular economy system, right? We create and then we dispose. We don't use that again. And essentially, what happens with that is that you've created so many resources, and that's required for any species to develop, even through evolution. Every species that has developed and done some changes. So that's not where I think humans have gone wrong. I think we've gone wrong in using our waste. So when we've created so much waste and created so many products, it has to land up somewhere. It's eventually going to land up in places that are empty, so landfills, beaches, and that will eventually land up into the water because our Earth is 70% of surface. The 70% of surface is water. So no matter where you throw the waste, at the end of the day, it will have some impact on the marine ecosystem. So I think the problem is more of improper waste disposal and management of waste. And if we're able to, so we need to solve the problem at the root rather than diverting where we dispose plastic or single-use plastic. I think that we need to have systems in place, and yes, it will take us time to reach there. Eventually, we do need to get rid of single-use plastic and things like that. But I think that we need to solve the problem at its root to be able to solve problems like marine pollution and land pollution and things like that.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more with what you were saying about addressing the problem at the root and how we need better waste management systems. You were mentioning how it's very common for waste to end up in the ocean. So I'm guessing this really affects biodiversity. Can you tell us about this?
So yes, so essentially what happens is that different types of biodiversity are affected by plastic in different ways. If you look at the species like sharks, what they do is they just open their mouth and they wait for food to come in and then they close it and digest it. Now, because there is so much pollution that's happening and so much waste is reaching the ocean, there's bound to have a lot of waste in their food. And we can see that through a lot of news that a whale was found with 800 kgs of plastic and things like that. And but that's the bigger species. When it comes to the smaller species, the bottom of the food chain, they're affected because the plastic breaks down into microplastic in very small pieces. And that seems to be an easy prey to almost all marine species because it's not moving around, right? Plastic doesn't have a brain of its own, so it's not going to run away from predators. But at the same time, it looks like animals like jellyfish that move around or float around in the water. And that's how a lot of biodiversity is affected and they end up eating plastic. And how that affects them essentially is that plastic makes their stomach feel full. So when our stimuli, even humans, when we eat certain amount of food, our stomach responds in a certain way that tells the brain, okay, I'm done now. I don't need more food. And essentially, plastic makes them feel, and even humans it will make them feel that at an earlier stage. And so then when we're like, okay, I don't need more food, but they do need more food, and that eventually leads to starvation. But eventually, that does come and affect humans as well, because now humans are at the top of the food chain. Whether it's marine or land, even if a shark eats plastic, at the end of the day, that shark is getting caught by a net that's coming to the market and then on our plate. So we're just going to end up harming ourselves. It's going to come back in a circular way to humans as well. So it's not only marine biodiversity, but it's all biodiversity because a substance is entering the food chain and then it's going to affect all the stakeholders of the food chain.
Definitely, I completely agree. And recently, many studies have come out talking about this, right? And how microplastics have been found now in our organs. And I think a statistic said that we eat about 40 pounds of plastic in our lifetime, which I think is really scary because when you eat the plastic, you eat the chemicals that come with it, right? So you propose a very innovative solution to the impact of plastic pollution on biodiversity. Could you share it with us? Could you tell us a little bit about your project?
Yes, so my solution works towards modifying plastic. Now, getting rid of plastic is the ultimate goal, but stage long process because we're so dependent on plastic. And plastic is dependent because it is useful at the end of the day. You can't say that plastic is bad. It has many important uses because it's durable, because it's cheap. So my solution aims at not getting rid of plastic, but modifying plastic such that it doesn't go into the food chain. When animals, like I talked about animals thinking that plastic is food, each animal also has stimuli that makes them think that, okay, this is dangerous. That's how they recognize predators, right? They know that, okay, that animal is dangerous for me, or that area is dangerous for me. So essentially, my solution aims to change plastic such that plastic will instigate the stimuli without mentally harming or causing mental trauma to the animals. And they'll just think that this is something that's not safe for me. And they won't eat it, and thus it will never enter our food chain.
That's very interesting. And can you tell us a little bit more about this stimuli? What kind of modifications are you thinking about, and what kind of reactions would you expect on the animals?
So right now I'm looking at one species. I'm looking at albatross birds. This is because every species responds in a different way. So I can't like look at all species in one species at a time. So for albatross, we're looking mainly at color and smell because they're very sensitive to that, and because they're not underwater, things like electric pulses won't affect them because essentially birds do a full scan of the ocean and then they find predators and they deep dive and take the predator out. And albatross, they hunt on the surface. So essentially, using things like color and smell will be used to make them think that okay, this is not considered food. I'm not going to go for that. So we're looking at mainly those two stimuli for now.
That's very interesting. I think this solution is so cool because I've never heard of anything like it. And just a really quick question on that as well. The ultimate goal would be to have the stimuli for as many marine species integrated into every plastic type, right? Or
Yes. So
okay.
that's the end goal. But one interesting thing that we came up with was that just like a baby in humans learn by seeing others humans, right? Like if somebody uses a knife with caution, over experience, you're also going to use a knife with caution. So we're also looking at another reason that we chose albatross is because they're very vocal and they inform other species or predators. So essentially, if we're able to make them feel that plastic is dangerous, they'll pass on that message to more species. And through experience, more and more species will start they'll start reacting to plastic such that they don't eat it. So we're looking at a more ripple effect because the marine ecosystem is so interconnected and species are interdependent. Affect other species and have a ripple effect to so that we need minimum modifications to plastic because each modification is going to make it more complicated and more expensive. And plastic is famous because it's cheap. So keeping those in mind, we're looking at a more ripple effect.
That's very interesting. I think you've really thought of different ways to make this solution effective. So congratulations on that. And tell us a little bit more about how you came up with this idea. How was the process of making this idea?
So this idea was more of like a aha moment, but it originally came to me about I think a year ago. So there was this showcase of ideas kind of thing that was going to happen in our school, and for that we were looking at plastic pollution, and then that's when we came up with this solution, this idea. And that's when we tried developing it. Me and one of my other friends tried to develop it, but we didn't get too far, mainly because we didn't know people with the right expertise. But then when I came to Blue Circle, I saw that there are so many, like Dr. Ash was there was Harzik there were so many other people who had a lot of connections. And so I thought that why not resurface the project and see if I'm able to build connections that will help me in this project. So that's how I got it back, and then I developed it. I took resources from Dr. Ash and understood various stimuli and then choosing the fish. So I originally said that, okay, this is my idea. Albatross, based on the various reasons that I mentioned earlier. So when I got under albatross, then I started looking at similar albatross. And that's how I've narrowed down the project. And now I'm going to start developing it from this small scope that I've chosen for now.
That's such an amazing and inspiring story. I can really tell you that everyone who's heard the idea of your project has been amazed because, as I was saying, it's something so innovative and so different from the usual solutions that we usually come up with. And can you tell me a little bit about what motivated you to create this project?
So I think it was just about how humans are they're having impacts that we never thought would happen, and how just like, oh, it's happening, we'll do something about it when it strikes. But it has started striking, and that's when I thought that I want to do something. And from that will to do something is how the idea came up.
People, it's easier to say Oh, that's fine. It doesn't
Hmm.
affect me yet. We can leave the solution to later, but it's really cool that you already took initiative and started doing something about it. So now I would like to ask you what other solutions could go hand in hand with your project. Would it be possible to complement it with educational or awareness campaigns, or how do you plan on doing something like that?
So I don't have a plan right now, but if we were to develop it in the future, the main goal would be to get rid of things like single-use plastics because there is an alternative for them. Whereas if we look at like the laptops we're working on right now for this call, we don't have a feasible alternative yet. So that's where I want to aim to implement my solution. But places where we do have an alternative, we should move to that alternative, and that will essentially be my aim at the end. So switching over to like metal straws and all the various solutions that are already there in the market. And maybe at a later stage, once technology develops more, we can start looking at bioplastics and plastics that will disintegrate with the environment and they'll get back to their normal state. They'll give back to the nature. But that's a further extension to the project. But right now, I'm just looking at a modification, and essentially after that, the reduction of single-use plastic, and then taking the project forward.
That's great. That's very interesting. I agree. Single-use plastics are a big, big issue, so it's good that you're focusing on the next step would be to focus on them. Now, I would like to ask you, what kind of support do you need to execute your project? Do you need help from your school, from the government, companies? And if so, how can you get this support?
So I think right now I'm looking at support from the scientific part, like expertise in the field. So like maybe labs or university departments that study animal stimuli, or if there are company labs that study stimuli. So right now I just need a help of in terms of the expertise with people who have knowledge or know what sources can be used to understand how animals react to various things, because obviously you can't like go test on the animals, right? You have to understand from other research that is done. So that's one part of the help per se. The other part of the support is access to labs for developing the product later on. So once I have the similar ready, I have to understand how plastic is made currently. What are the components of plastic? What are the chemical reactions that are formed? How petroleum translates to plastic? So that's where I need probably access to labs and see where this modification that comes up, because I'll think of a lot of modifications and then I'll see which one fits into place with plastic. So that's where I need experimentation facilities. And at the end, I'll probably need, once the solution is ready and it's feasible and it's completely ready, which is the last stage, that's probably where we'll need cooperation from the government to actually implement this plastic into manufacturing companies and changing the plastic that is used and getting this new type of plastic into the market and slowly getting rid of the old type of plastic.
Yeah, that's a really good point because you would definitely need once you first you need people to help with the solution, right? So labs and experts and scientists, and then you need to go and have someone help you implement it. So this is where the government comes in, and maybe even the companies. Sometimes they're open to help, so maybe even the companies will be willing to,
Hmm.
without any legislation, adopt the additives for their modifications regarding the future of your generation on
Your
plastic
voice
pollution.
broke out.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was asking if you could share with us a message you would give to decision makers regarding the future of your generation and the plastic pollution issue.
So I think that it all starts from single individual actions. Like many people expect the government to do all these actions, but at the end of the day, government's a reflection of the society, right? If the society takes initiative, the government will also, it has to be a midway thing where the government acts and the individuals act, and then we meet midway and then go ahead from there. So I think that it's important everybody does their own part, and it's not that hard to do your own part. Like a simple act like segregating your waste is going to reduce your impact of the amount of waste you give out. Like at my house, we have segregation every 2 or 3 days because everything is segregated. So it's a simple act of thinking for 2 minutes before you put your waste into one dustbin and just putting it into two dustbins rather than one. So I think it's all about just small actions and not doing it for anybody else, not doing it for a movement or a project, but just for yourself so that you know that you're not destroying the future of the upcoming generation. So I think it's all about small actions and also telling your story of the small actions that you are doing because that's what will inspire more people. Like somebody might not want to be the first person to do it, but if two people in their society start doing something and they tell that story, then many people are like, oh, even I want to be able to tell that story. It makes me feel happy that somebody's doing that. And that's how more and more people will start building up to the cause. So it's not that one person or one government can't solve it. It's everybody together who can solve it. So my message would just be that change your lifestyle by just one action, and that'll get the ball moving.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're completely right, and it's very inspiring to hear you say that because there's so much with individual action, right? There's so much you can change through small actions by yourself. Sometimes we want to wait for the government to come in and do something or the companies, but just by making the right decisions and doing small things such as segregating waste, just as you were saying, we can really start making a difference. So I wanted to ask you if you have anything else to add, anything else that you would like to share with us before we finish this conversation.
So I would just like to talk about how schools can be a major point of contribution to to fighting climate change, and that's because everybody in the school community is already facing or will face in the near future the effects of climate change. And schools, the children are also the most like, okay, fine, we have a problem, let's go solve it. We have nothing to lose, right? We can, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we can go and do it. Just like in my school, we're doing it just because, well, it's interesting. We can put solar panels. We can have solar panels work. So I think that in schools it's very important because once children start thinking about it and doing it, that's also going to get a lot of the older generation to take action. That oh, somebody 14 years old is doing something. Let me also do it. I don't want to be the one who's not helping them. So I think that schools are a very good community as everybody supports each other. You're not going to be left as the only person trying to do something, and your teachers are always there for you. So I think that schools are a very important place, and I also think that schools are an important place because the root of this problem is lack of education. If everybody is educated about the problems, they will automatically want to solve them. And by education, I don't mean like lectures upon lectures upon lectures, because that just makes the students feel like, oh, this is cliche, it's fine, it's just daily this thing. But if we actually start talking about the less known problems, getting more people educated about climate change, everybody will do their own part because sometimes it's just about I don't know how to do waste segregation, or I don't know who to give my segregated waste to. So it's just simple things like that. Like outside my house, there's there's a huge like landfill that just come up, because people just aren't aware about what they can do otherwise. So simple education and awareness building is also important, and that's something that can be done in school because there's no preset mindset yet. Like a second grader doesn't have a preset mindset about the world. They probably not even experience these problems. But if they are told about them, they'll start thinking about it and they'll start wanting to act about it. So I think schools are a very important part of this fight against climate change.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you. I think education is really the key to making long lasting change. So I think getting schools involved is really a key step to making solutions effective. So it's really inspiring to see how this concept is really clear in your mind, and how you were telling us in the beginning that you've done really cool things within your school, and you have gotten your school to reduce the carbon footprint, and you have done amazing projects within your school. So that's really, really inspiring to hear and really amazing. I see that we have on the live stream Hervé watching us and sending regards to you and congratulating you on your initiative. So thank you, Hervé, for watching us. Um, we also have a couple more watchers, so thank you everyone who's seeing this. And we are very, very happy to have you here. This conversation was great. We learned a lot about you and about your initiative and your perspective on not only ocean pollution but other environmental issues, as you were talking right now, um, with education and climate change. So I would like to thank you once again before we sign off, and just say if you would like to add any final remarks.
No, I think I've said everything I wanted to. But I just want to say that thank you for the opportunity. Dr. Ash has always been there, and you just message him at any point in time, and he's just like, okay, I'll get it done for you. So I just wanted to thank him and the whole Pop family because it's really helped me make important connections that will help me now and later on. So just thank you for that.
No, on the contrary, thank you so much for being a part of the Pop family and for sharing all your projects and initiatives with us. And we're really excited to learn more about how your project goes once you start doing the execution. And please keep us posted so we can share your story more.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Same to you.